Questioners at the Honourable Rick Barker.
Mr Speaker, I want to speak on the Weathertight Homes Resolution Financial Services package and say that the government supports this bill. Yes, it has been a long time coming, and although the member has said that she wants to see the blame game over, one figures that within this piece of legislation, all the issues around it, the blame game has been played significantly by all parties. One cannot underestimate the stress of a homeowner who has built a new home and sees it leaking and sweating and rotting around them. Because we must remember, Mr Speaker, that a home is a person's number one, generally, major investment. It's not just an investment, it's where people live. It's an expression of themselves. They put a lot of time and effort into decorating it, doing the grounds and so on. It's where they live. And to see their home fall apart around them is very, very distressing for them. There's no doubt that there has been a number of factors which have led to this. People have pointed to the deregulation of the industry, and I hope this House takes on board the consequences of having a totally deregulated industry. The lessons are to be learned from this for a number of other industries that we deregulate. The fact is that we have an element of our society today which constantly carps against deregulation. They say that constantly carps in favour of deregulation and carps against regulation. They oppose regulation at every step of the way. But let this be a lesson to the deregulators. Where there is insufficient regulation, the public are at risk. If a person wants to go and live in a completely deregulated society with all the benefits that flow with having no regulations, let them go and live in Mogadishu. And they will be afraid of the water, the food, street violence, and there will be nothing there that will actually fit the purpose for which it's being sold unless it's some antique military arms. We live in a civil society, and the purpose of a civil society is to protect ordinary citizens from the predations and the incompetencies of other people. So we want to have a regulated industry. That means that when people undertake the tasks of designing, the tasks of building and construction, that they are skilled and fit for the purpose. This, I have to say, has been a failure in part of many homeowners that were built during the period of the leaky homes. So we come to the issue of where we apportion the problems. Councils, for their part, said that they had no responsibility in the early stages because they felt that they were the victims of legislation to be passed by central government, and they were simply following the deregulated environment of the central government, and it lay with central government. Central government, on the other hand, said no, it is the responsibility of local councils because local councils had approved the homes being put up. Others pointed at the builders, others pointed at the designers of the builders, the architects, others pointed to those who provided the types of claddings, the monolithic claddings, and the seals and so on that went with it. So we had everybody pointing fingers at everybody. But in the middle of all of us, the homeowners were left with stinking, rotting homes. Well articulated by Sue Kidsley. As she described those things, I felt a seizure of catarrh and pneumonia coming on as she adequately described all the health problems. Sticky botrytis, she likes that phrase, sticky botrytis, and all the other grebes and germs that go with it. No one has described it better than her. And yes, she is right. It is a health problem, a physical health problem. But also, I would add to the point that Sue Kidsley has made, it is also a mental health problem. People have been incredibly stressed about this for a long time. And when families are under stress of this nature, it does adversely affect the whole of the family unit. The families of the people who own these homes do look to this Parliament for a solution. And it could be possible for me to go and point out all of the failures of this legislation, and there are some. It is not perfect. There's very seldom do we pass legislation in this House that is perfect, and this is one of those pieces of legislation. It has its imperfections, but it does have its strengths. The strength is that we're going to get the elements of the source of the essential problem. It's going to be the central government, it's going to be local authorities, and it is going to have some liability placed on the homeowner. All three parties are going to have to come to grips with this and are going to have to pay their share. There's been some estimates of what it's going to cost, and the cost runs into billions. And I think that that is probably a very conservative estimate of the cost. There is also going to be another problem for the government, and that is how we undertake the fixing of these homes. But I want to say to the member for Building and Housing and the members of the national government that are responsible for training, the estimates are of 20,000 plus homes in Auckland alone. The Salvation Army in Auckland has identified that Auckland is short by some odd 6,000 houses to be built, and we have the rebuilding of Christchurch to be undertaken. New Zealand in the next decade is going to undertake more building and construction than we have in many a decade, probably in our history. There's going to be a massive amount of construction, and the worry is going to be, where are we going to find the skills and the tradespeople to undertake this work? I have to say, Mr Speaker, at this stage I do not see a coherent plan from the national government of how we're going to undertake this work. Currently we should have many hundreds of young people who are currently out of work undertaking trade training on a mass way, similar to the sorts of trade training New Zealand undertook at the end of the Second World War, when the men came home from the war and New Zealand underwent a major reconstruction boom. Well, the member across the road chirps that they have announced it today, and I read the announcement. I have to say to the member, although it is an announcement, I think the size of it is timid in comparison to the size of the problem. We've got 20,000 homes in Auckland alone to be fixed. Auckland needs more homes. It's in the order of 6,000 to 10,000 homes. That's 30,000 homes in Auckland. And then we have the whole of large sections of Christchurch to rebuild. And I would like to think that the government was going to deal with this problem in a very strong, firm and crisp manner. And I have to say that I don't see that in the release that the government has put out today. Yes, it's a start, acknowledges the problem, takes its hat off and says we've got an issue to deal with, but it doesn't grab the problem by the throat and wrestle it to the ground and fix it. That's what we expect. Strong leadership from the government. It talks about leadership, but it has not delivered on it in this case. However, back to the bill, Mr Speaker. I've been sidelined by interjections from the opposition. The issue here is about fixing leaky homes and the weathertight homes and making a plan. Well, I'd say to the Honourable Maurice Williamson, any plan is better than no plan. And the minister's come up with a plan, and all of the elements are there. I think many of the homeowners who are currently suffering from leaky home syndrome will feel that they have a pathway forward. It might not be the perfect path, but at least it is a path. And it is an acknowledgement by the government that central government has a role of this and will support them. It also acknowledges the role of local government, and local government will also support them. So this should be some comfort to many homeowners. It will, of course, wipe thousands and thousands of dollars off the balance sheet of many homeowners, and they will be poorer for decades to come. It will take many homeowners a long time to recover from this. And it will make many of them very timid about going about and building a new home in the future. They will be very cautious, and rightly so. Labor supports this legislation. It will help address the issues affected by many homeowners. There are many issues which remain unresolved, and the Labor Party will be raising a number of issues during the Committee of the Whole stage, be putting forward amendments which we hope the Honourable Maurice Williamson, who's taken the lead on this, will entertain very carefully and discuss with the Labor Party as we go through the Committee of the Whole in order to improve this piece of legislation, because the member says he will. The Minister says he will be happy to do that, and the Opposition Labor Party welcomes that as a very positive acknowledgement that there needs to be some improvements in this. And the collective wisdom of this House should be able to bring to the House a very good piece of legislation, or an improved piece of legislation. So, Mr Speaker, I just want to say Labor will support this piece of legislation, but it needs to be acknowledged that there are other issues on the periphery of this which are of concern, and that is the capacity and the skills in the industry to undertake this massive repair work on thousands and thousands of homes across New Zealand, the underbuild of homes in Auckland, and the rebuild of Christchurch. This is a substantial undertaking, and the government needs to take this seriously and really to put in place some solid, enduring policies that will give the industry the skills and the tradespeople necessary to undertake this substantial amount of work.
Call Dr. Camcorder.